I just noticed that there's quite a bad leak there, a gas leak. So that could be part of the problem. If it's leaking that fitting, it could be sucking air when it gets running. I see here that line down here. It looks like the compression fitting. Sometimes when you tighten compression fittings up too much, it will pinch the off the end of the tube. So that, while I'm taking the mechanical stuff apart, I noticed the compression fitting here was leaking quite a bit. So I'm just going to make a video of this. Maybe I can watch it and remind myself. It's going to be a couple of months before I put it back together, probably. But I have a feeling that if it would start and run okay, but not continue to run, that is usually an indication that it's too lean. So what could have been happening is that if this is leaking so badly here, I can see the amount of gasoline underneath the fitting here. So it's been leaking there for a while. If that was loose and the boat started running, it would potentially be getting air there and running too lean, which usually makes the boat kind of start and run okay, and then it stops. So it didn't backfire. Usually a backfire is a good indication that it's running too lean. But I'm going to carry on taking the rest of it apart. I've noticed the floorboards are already numbered on the bottom. They're all going to have to be scrubbed, and then I'll let them dry and sand them. This boat still has the original style floorboards, which are directly on top of the ribs. So, and the other thing they did, it wasn't until 1924 that they actually changed this seat design. You see this seat here is the fixed one, and in 1924 they changed it and they made this seat here, it's only about 4 inches wide. The removable part is the wide part. That way, the poor guy who has to unwire and unhook the dash does not have to stand on his head to get under there to unhook everything. So that's yet to come. Here, and that's probably why it's got 2 batteries. Some nice oars. I see these look like they're new. I bet Ron made those. If you look closely, you can see they're laminated. The originals were actually cut out of an 8-inch wide board. Just working on the mechanical removal here, I'm noticing a few unnecessary complications. I've noticed that it's got 2 batteries. Both of them are 12 volts. Sometimes boats have a 6 volt and a 12 volt because you can't get a 6 volt bilge pump anymore. But there's an awful lot of unnecessary wiring, I think. I noticed over here on the back of the dash, there's actually an automotive ballast resistor, which basically takes a 12 volt, drops it down to 9 volts at the coil. I used to do that on my own boat. For the last 8 years, I've just been running straight 12 volts onto the coil. They're Model T ignition coils, and a Model T, when the Model T is running on magneto, the magneto at full speed is producing about 30 volts feeding into the coil. The difference is on a magneto, or on a Model T magneto anyway, it's alternating current. So it's half the wear on the points. I don't think it's a significant problem to run one of these coils on 12 volts. So I think I may probably just be starting new when I put this boat back together with the wiring, or certainly reducing a lot of this complication in bird's nest. If it's somebody doing it themselves, I mean, it's best to probably just, unless there is a problem, just stick with it. I mean, there are a lot of little things here. Here's the wire that's feeding the ignition. On 12 volts, this wouldn't be an issue. On 9, it might be. Here's the coil wire here, and this is the wire from the timer. I think the simplest thing to do would be to disconnect stuff from the dash here, then I can get the engine out of the way. You can see here the engine bed, it's been filled in here from when it got converted from a twin One thing that's unusual about this boat is the engine bed. It's the only port crawling boat I've seen where the engine bed actually sits on the planking. So I'm not sure whether this was originally a twin or not. I know when Ron had it all that time it was a twin. I don't see any extra screw holes in the ribs here where the front bulkhead would have been further back. And there's the other thing on these engines is this is the drain. The muffler actually drains through the this has been changed. This goes through the plank. Originally it would have gone through the keel on most boats. And this is probably a notch from the original engine bed where it probably had something going through there to do with the twin when it was here. To convert this to a single, you see it's got a pretty long shaft here. I see Paul has put a stop collar on the shaft here because normally the engine would be sitting right here, and that would keep the engine coupling, and this fiber washer would keep the starter drum from working forward and wearing itself out. So I see Paul's put that stop collar on there, which is a good sense of cause and effect. A lot of variations on a theme here as far as the intake goes. Originally, this would have gone straight down through the keel. But carrying on, getting the stuff out of here. Some of these bits are a little tricky to get apart. This handle on the priming rod that usually has a tapered pin. Normally it's the one towards the starboard side is the skinny end. It's kind of, you have to look at them carefully to know. And then it's a matter of extracting the pin and taking the handle off. And then this whole rod will come out. The other thing pay attention to is there's a little spring. There's the thing that engages in the quadrant. And a tiny little spring. I usually put that back into the handle here. This is spring loaded, and that's what makes a nice ratcheting sound when you advance the timing. It's pretty easy to lose this, so I make sure I put a piece of tape around there before I put it away. There's quite a bit of work involved in taking one of these boats apart. These are the floorboards here. I've got the seats out. There's all of this stuff. It's got to be degreased. I have all of the bumpers, ropes, mechanical bits in this box here. The engine's here. So I'm getting close. The actual housing I'm not going to take out. Just have a lot of these little doodads left on here. It's important. These are all numbered by hand, so I'm going to make sure that they're all labeled where they go, because when they're all drilled by hand, then they're not, this one might not fit in the one up ahead. And there are these additional brackets for the top. There's a lot of stuff here. I've got all the floorboards here. Before I can do anything with them, I've just got to clean all of this oil off of them. That's one thing about a Disc Pro is with a two-stroke anyway, they're all very oily in the bottom. So just using some hot soapy water here initially. I'll probably have to do this a couple of times before I have everything cleaned up. Got an old scrub brush here, some old rubber gloves, and very hot water. let these dry for a day, and maybe just go over them with some more clear water. I think eventually, after I've used all of the soapy water and clear water, I'll probably give them another cleaning with methyl hydrate, because I want to make sure there's no oil or anything that's going to affect the adhesion of the fresh varnish when I put it on. I have a few little pieces left to take out of the hull. I am not going to remove the device. I think that's, unless you're prepared to do or deal with a lot of unintended consequences, it's best not to disturb the device. I'm almost there with the hardware. Just taking off these brackets are probably something Ron made up for the battens to keep puddles out of the cover. Not sure whether I'll be putting them back on, but on a boat like this, all of the hardware is not drilled in a factory with machines. It's usually drilled by hand. Here's a good example. These are those brackets from the starboard side, and what I've done is I just mark, I always go a system from 1 is the front, 2 is the middle, 3 is the back. So you can see here the difference in the spacing. So this will save a lot of time down the road when I go to put it all back together. I won't be guessing and going through the 9 combinations on this side. Actually, it would be a lot more than 9 combinations if I mix in the other side. So this way it'll just simplify putting it back together. So I'm just back at the floorboards here. I took them all out yesterday and scrubbed them all with hot soapy water, trying to get the oil off. It did a pretty good job, but there's still a lot of oily residue on here. So this is one of them that has been washed, and it's got a few fragments on it, but I can see here where there's still a film of oil on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just taking some used paint thinner. This used to be, until about a year ago, about 12 bucks a gallon. Now it's about $35, $40 a gallon. So what I do when I've used this stuff for cleaning my brush is I don't throw it out. I put it into another container. And here, if you look at the bottom, you can see that after a couple of months, the crud settles out, and then I still have the stuff at the top, which is fairly clean. So I've just been soaking these rags here and going over the stuff, and then after I've got a good coating of paint thinner on it, and I go over it with a clean paper towel and get it as clean as I can. They're a lot cleaner than they were, but it's not suitable. The problem with oily wood is when you sand it, you're just kind of working the oil down into the sanding groove. So I think what I'll do is on the floorboards, I'll probably wet sand these for the first coat, just to, that gets them pretty clean. And if, when you're wet sanding it, if there is any oil left, you can tell by the way the water beads off. But that's about where I am. The hull is pretty well stripped out. I just have to take the numbers off, or the name off. There are an incredible amount of parts on these boats. These are a few boxes of the parts I have here. Got the batteries there, the engine's over there in the corner. So these are the ropes, bumpers. These are most of the mechanical bits. I have the engine here. Hopefully I remember where it all goes, but that's why it's important to catalog and detail everything. These are all of the brass bits I've taken out of the inside of the hull. They're all separated into different bags and labeled. I've seen some people where they just throw everything into a box, and then it's just a giant puzzle at the end when you go to put it back together. But I do have a bit of work ahead of me to get this oil out of here before I get back to the hull. I think what I'll do is tomorrow I will just take a scraper, scrape most of this sludge off, and then I'll go over it with some hot soapy water here. Probably take a couple of times. Seems to be the low spot where the sludge tends to accumulate. It's probably been quite a few years since this boat was done. Some things that I would normally take out, like this rubber hose. I see it's all sealed in with Sikaflex. I don't think I'm going to disturb that. I think I'll just put some plastic around that and leave it in situ. Now that I've got all of the hardware taken out of the boat or out of the inside, the next step is to deal with all of the oil and sludge in the bottom. The first thing I'm going to do is just use a putty knife to get all this loose flaky stuff off. And then after the putty knife, I'm going to use a pole scraper. I use this quite a bit on a lot of jobs. I sharpen it with, I usually harden the blades with, I heat them cherry red with a torch and then quench them in water. That way they're really hard. When you do that though, you can't sharpen it with a file anymore. You have to sharpen it with a grinder, which I have a grinder right behind me, so it's not a big deal. But I just find when you harden these out of the package, the edge lasts a lot longer. I've seen a lot of people pulling these and they don't sharpen them and they wonder why they don't work. But the key to one of these is you've got to keep the edge pretty sharp. And this will take all of the loose stuff off, because I want to get all the loose stuff off before I apply any varnish. I'm just looking at the bilge of this boat. Normally my plan is to spray the inside of a dippy all the time. But I think before I do that, by the time I've taken all this oil out, it's going to be almost bare wood. So I think what I'm going to do is, after I clean up this mess, I'm going to soak it with some soapy water, scrub it, vacuum it out, and after it's dry, then I will use a brush and probably up to three rounds here, or just below the floor, I'm going to apply a couple of coats of varnish to seal the wood, because when I scrape this, there's not going to be a lot of finish left on here. You can see in some spots like here, it's still quite a bit of varnish on the end. Here there's quite a bit of varnish. But down on the garbage here, it's almost bare wood, so it would be nice to get those all sealed. Now I've got my nice sharp scraper. You see it's pretty well taking all of the loose stuff off, doing a pretty nice job of it. An awful lot of corners and edges to go around here. I'm not going to worry about the top here. I'm just worrying about, for now, I'm just worrying about the garbards, the keel, and maybe the second round where all this loose flaky stuff is. I've just been going over all this loose flaky stuff with a scraper. It's going to take a couple of goes. Here I've got a bunch of piles of stuff I've scraped off the bottom. It's all loose now. I'll vacuum that up and then go at it one more time, maybe two more times with a scraper. Just noticing here there's a bit of a punch in the plank there. I don't know whether that's been repaired on the outside. Just have to make a note of that so I don't forget it. But this is a totally original bottom. It's been my experience that with an iron fastened boat, I do not want to start. I think I did one iron fastened boat, and by the time I was done, I was up to the shear plank by the time I was finished. So anybody contemplating going at an iron fastened boat, you've got a lot more courage than I do, or you don't have to justify a bill to anybody. Now that I've scraped most of the loose stuff up, I'm just going to go through the inside here with some hot soapy water. This is Sunlight dish soap. good of a scrub as I can. Probably have to scrub it. Just using Sunlight dish soap. I've given the soapy water time to dry. I went through with some hot soapy water and scrubbed it really well. I think that's raised a bit of the oil to the surface. You never get rid of it all. My objective here is to really get the oil loose enough or up to the surface enough that varnish is an oil product itself, so I'm hoping if I get it kind of degreased enough, I will be able to brush on some thin varnish, and that will kind of lock the oil in where it is. Just going over it with a scraper now seems to have kind of solidified a lot of this oily crap. You can see here how it's cleaning up pretty nicely. Kind of amazing when you think that this is over 100 years old, still the original wood. So what I'm going to do is, after I've finished going around the whole boat, I'm going to give it one more shot of the hot soapy water and let it dry for another couple of days, and then I will go through it with an artist brush and or not an artist brush, but a small paintbrush, and just varnish the entire inside from here down to try and clean up this mess. And then I'll flip the boat right upside down to varnish the outside. What I'm doing now is I've been through the inside of the bilge here a couple of times with hot soapy water. It's had a couple of days to dry. Still got a lot of residue here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over it with this detail sander here. Probably going to go through quite a bit of sandpaper because that oily cake on the top is plugging the paper pretty good. I've got some varnish here, and what I've done is I've thinned it down probably 40%. It's fairly thin. I'm trying to lock this oily stuff into the wood. So I've just gone through all of the planks that were bare wood under the floor here with some thinned down varnish. You can see here how it's soaking in, which is good. That will seal the wood. This doesn't look the greatest, but it's all under the floor. It's more of a structural consideration than anything else here. So I guess after that's dry, I'm going to turn the boat upside down and I'll start work on the outside, get a couple of coats of varnish on there.